Gentlemen, my name is Tim Ball. I am from InEvent. We are an all-in-one event management platform. We are situated just next door. If you'd like to come and speak to us, then we are the stage sponsors today. Like to introduce you to the first after-lunch session for today. This session, as you can see, is about the metaverse. Think you know everything. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. So in this session, we will explore how innovations in spatial computing are creating new experience opportunities. From the Apple Vision Pro to advancements in web technology, we'll be deep diving into why we believe the metaverse is not dead and its potential for our industry. Covering this session will be George P. Johnson, Senior Director of Digital Strategy, Kerstin Twacthmann, and Creative Technology Director, Sam Wray. If you would like to ask any questions, we would ask that you scan the Pigeonhole QR code, and we will answer your questions at the end of the session. I'll hand you over to your speakers.
Thanks very much, Tim.
Thank you.
That was a boom.
Wow.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for coming. Welcome to our session on the metaverse. As Tim said, a few introductions. My name's Kerstin. I am Senior Director of Digital Strategy at George P. Johnson.
And I'm Sam Wray, Technology Director at George P. Johnson.
For those of you who aren't familiar with George P. Johnson, we are a large experiential agency. We are actually one of the biggest and oldest agencies in the world. Over 100 years. You don't hear that very often. And we were started by our founder, George P. Johnson, who pitched the idea to Henry Ford of the world's first ever motor show. A little bit of trivia for you this afternoon. We are now a global agency. We have presences in over 30 offices. We run, on average, about 8,000 events a year, reaching about 25 million people. So we are experienced, we have a lot of opinions on experiential marketing, and hopefully a lot of expertise to share with you. So I suppose to start with, I want to thank you for coming to a session on the metaverse in 2023. I think we can all agree that it's a year that has not been particularly kind to the term, and it was a term that was already receiving a fair amount of backlash at its peak in 2022, as this picture here shows. This is a slide from the Beamer Awards of the same year. James Watley at Diva Agency does a really great anti-metaverse talk. I encourage you to watch it. But if we can, for a moment, cast our minds back to a time before ChatGPT and before the AI gold rush that has been this year, the metaverse really was the buzzword of the day, and it's worth reminding ourselves why it was exciting at the time. The numbers being associated with what was being described as metaversal experiences were absolutely huge. So it all started when Travis Scott had a concert in Fortnite that was viewed by over 45 million people and made him $20 million. Roblox started hitting visitor numbers of 42 million people every single day. Incidentally, that's now up to 63 million people. Nightland, one of the first brands to go big on the metaverse, they had a Nightland in Roblox that was visited by 21 million people. And suddenly we had land on platforms like Decentraland and Sandbox that was worth millions. It wasn't just for fun. There were real-world applications. There were NFT war projects for the Ukraine that raised millions of dollars in aid. There were medical projects that were launched that were able to treat people remotely using just computers. And it was kind of testimony to everyone's excitement about this concept that it was generating so much money and so much attention, even though nobody could really agree on what it was. And I think it's fair to say the tide has turned dramatically since then. So this is a slide. This graph here shows Google Trends starting 2021 and leading us up to this summer. And obviously you can see the huge drop-off that's happened since then. BBC News headlines along the bottom, starting at what actually is the metaverse, to at peak kind of hype, November 2022, billions being sent in metaverse land grab, and one from a couple of months ago, what happened to Mark Zuckerberg's next big thing, and I think that kind of summarizes the entire hype cycle around the metaverse quite neatly. I think what happened was when Mark Zuckerberg rebranded Facebook as Meta and tried to own the space, it really became synonymous with him and the fortunes of that venture, and he sunk an eye-watering amount of money into it. It has, to this day, lost about 63 billion, I think, at last count. It's the same as a Fortune 500 company. And it's kind of turned sentiment around it, considering that as a concept, we were still struggling to get our head around exactly what it was, where the line was between the metaverse and games. The world sort of moved on and started to see this as a little bit of a joke. So, on that note, why am I on stage talking about the metaverse in 2023? So I think there's 3 reasons why I'm still interested in this space and why I think as event marketers this space is still worth talking about. Firstly, it's worth saying that innovation in experience design within the metaverse really hasn't stopped. And what we're seeing is that the brands that were early adopters in this space, they've continued to use it and they've continued to go pretty big on it. So Gucci, who made headlines in 2022 when they were selling virtual handbags for more than the real ones were going for, they've continued to do lots in the space. So they own land on Roblox. And just this autumn, they hosted their Milan fashion show in that space, as well as other metaverse platforms. It was a digital twin of their real experience. The real experience was rained out. It was due to happen in an open air space on the streets of Italy. And that meant that the virtual one took on new significance as it became the only kind of version of the vision they had for that show. Similarly, BMW, who were pretty quick in 2022 to get involved, they ran car launches in spaces like Journey. Just this summer, they did BMW Meta Ride, which was a kind of virtual test drive platform of their CE2 motorbike, I think it's called. It got loads of traction, it got loads of attention. It was kind of mini games, virtual test rides, the ability to compete for virtual swag for your avatars. So again, they're sticking with it as a strategy. Another good example is Wimbledon. Wimbledon launched Wimbleworld a couple of years ago, and they've expanded it every year since. So they've expanded onto new platforms like Fortnite. They've added new functionality. So this year you could play it being a groundskeeper within Wimbleworld. You could buy Ralph Lauren merchandise for your avatars. So it's clear that there was an obvious incentive to get involved in this space while it was getting a lot of news hype and getting people column inches. But even though the news agenda has moved on, these brands are obviously seeing great reach from engaging with these platforms. The second reason why I think it's still interesting is that we're seeing really new and different uses of these spaces for industry. So you might have heard about the industrial metaverse, and I won't spend a huge amount of time on it because it's not events-based, but essentially we're seeing kind of practical applications of these technology to enable things like training, data visualization, operational efficiencies. So digital twins, you probably will have heard about digital twins. Ericsson is building city-scale models of cities in order to optimize where their 3D antennas are put, for example. The picture that's there is from a healthcare startup called Yeon Metaverse. And what they do is they're aiming to improve surgical training, and they use AI, AR, and haptic feedback devices to do kind of very in-depth remote surgical training. Just a couple of months ago, they completed a successful surgical procedure in Myanmar that was overseen by a surgeon in Paris. So we're really seeing a lot more credible use cases for this technology beyond sort of throwaway PR exercises. And China, interestingly, is making huge investments in the space. They've released a 3-year strategy. They're often a player that's quite suspicious around new tech. They regulate quite heavily around things like cryptocurrency and AI, but they're going all in on the metaverse. And they're not the only government that's doing this. We have, sorry, I'm trying to remind myself, yeah, South Korea. South Korea has launched a $45 million fund specifically to encourage innovation around metaverse ecosystems. And the government of Dubai has launched a metaverse strategy, which is specifically aimed at bringing startups, metaverse startups, into the region, with the specific aim of becoming a leading metaverse economy, because they believe that that's an axis on which people are going to be competing. And the third reason why I think it's still an interesting space, I think one of the reasons why the metaverse as a term was difficult is because a lot of the things that it was describing really weren't technically feasible at the time. They were ideas. The technology wasn't mature enough yet to support them. But as we all know, it's been a pretty breakthrough year for technology, and we're seeing in what we would have described as metaversal technologies, we're seeing a massive maturation of what these both hardware and software can do. Just sort of anecdotally, we have a lot of technology in our office at GPJ, and we are bringing clients and staff in all the time to try these things. And the response we're getting is just bigger and bigger as people are amazed when they try VR again. They think they know VR, they've tried it 5-6 years ago, they try it again, they can't believe how great the experience has gotten, how immersive it is, how much fun it is. That goes across the board for things like gesture control, AR, and Sam's going to be taking us through like a deeper dive of some of those advancements in a minute, but I think it's worth saying that as experienced designers, we work in a very different space, right, from the theoretical. We work in what's practically possible today, and this is what's making this really interesting at the moment. So my takeaway really when we're talking about the metaverse is I think we need to move away from thinking about that term to thinking about the experiences that it describes. There is a conversion of technology happening, and its application is experiential. As experienced designers, we have a new set of tools, we have a new set of possibilities to reach our audiences, and it would be a mistake to dismiss those just because they are attached to an outdated label. We sometimes like to describe it to our clients as a new venue or a new frontier of spaces within which we can work, and essentially we have a new toolkit to create awe and wonder and to create exciting experience designs. So with that, Sam's going to take us through a little bit of what's new in 2023 in the metaverse.
Thanks, Kerstin. So this year, we've had 2 new headsets announced. One is the MetaQuest 3, which is available now, and a few of the key features are full color pass-through, and I'll go over what these features really mean in a minute, mixed reality focus, hand tracking, and it also supports WebXR. We also had announced the Apple Vision Pro, which is not available until early next year. This one's from Apple. And what do we know about it? Well, it's got all the same features. It's got full color pass-through, mixed reality focus, hand tracking, and it also supports WebXR. I'm just going to go into a little deeper dive about the Apple Vision Pro, as this is the most interesting one because we don't know much about it apart from what Apple has told us. Meta's Quest 3, the one that I showed just before, is already available to buy now. It's about £500. The Apple Vision Pro is around £2,000, a bit more than that. We don't know quite yet. So the Apple Vision Pro was kind of touted by Apple for work, mainly, in their keynote, showcasing extended kind of desktop displays from your macOS desktop, digital twins for FaceTime calling, and the eye pass-through on the front of the headset using lenticular technology. So people around you can always see where you're looking. It's kind of creepy, but kind of cool at the same time. It kind of keeps you grounded in the space. Apple Vision Pro is also supporting gaming, which is quite interesting, through third-party controllers. There are no controllers with this headset at all. You just use your hands. You kind of look at something and you pinch to activate. It's quite an interesting move from Apple, where every other headset really does require controllers at the moment, apart from the Quest series, which we'll get into in a moment. But on Apple Vision Pro and gaming, something quite interesting from Apple, also announced alongside the Apple Vision Pro, was the Apple Game Porting Toolkit, which allows developers to port existing Windows games over to the macOS platform. And not just the macOS platform, but Apple are looking to kind of, I think, roll out this toolkit for other platforms as well. As on their gaming page, they say Apple Silicon provides amazing graphics performance across iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple TV. So this is a bit of speculation, but it seems like Apple is subtly signaling that Apple Vision Pro might be a gaming device as well in the future for Windows games too. So they're looking really forward, the longevity of their own headset. They are saying it's definitely a work device. It has all these amazing features, but they know that people are going to want to game on this thing as well. So it's a bit of speculation here, but it's quite exciting. But going over the key features of both headsets, hand tracking enables natural interaction in experiences. So it means that you can give a headset to a new XR user, and they can put it on. They don't know how to use the controllers, but they don't need to. They can just use their hands to interact with whatever's on the headset. It just means that at your events, you can say, hey, come over, put on the headset. And there's kind of less of a barrier to entry to your users, which is really cool. We've been playing around a lot with this, with kind of client tours in the labs, our own testing as well, and people really get on board with this straight away. We've seen people just kind of like pick things up, move them around in virtual spaces, and they can just use this technology immediately. It's really fantastic. One of the other key features is the full color pass-through, which allows you to see your environment and a virtual space at the same time. So instead of having, me being in a forest, while we're all in the same room, but, I'm in the forest and you're not, maybe there's a small amount of forest around me on the floor, but I can see everyone around me as well. So I can talk to you, I can look at you, I can wave, and we're all in the same space, but I've just got a little bit extra on top, and that's what we're calling mixed reality experiences, or XR experiences. And again, we've been testing this with the Quest Pro, which is Meta's kind of like pro version of their Quest headset lineup, and this works really well. The Quest 3 has incredible full color pass-through, as does the, assumingly, the Apple Vision Pro as well. And I mentioned WebXR earlier as well. This is a technology which essentially supports the metaverse in the truest sense. So what is the metaverse really, as we're talking about this? It's a three-dimensional online environment which users are represented by avatars, and they interact with each other in virtual spaces, decoupled from the physical world. So this kind of like high-level concept doesn't refer to VR headsets at all. Even though we know the metaverse is coupled to VR headsets, it's really not. It's any platform at all which supports 3D. So a headset, a computer, a phone, anything which can support 3D, essentially. It's just the platform which supports all of these together. That bit there is the metaverse. And WebXR really supports that thing. So the Quest lineup has already had had WebXR kind of for quite some time, but the Vision Pro is going to support this as well. And WebXR is a group of standards which are used together to support rendering 3D scenes to hardware. So that's your virtual reality on headsets, that's your augmented reality on phones, or your mixed reality on both. And I'll just go over why this is quite exciting. The web, as you probably already know, is cross-platform by design. It's on my phone, it's on my computer, it's on the headsets, it's on your TV, it's everywhere. So WebXR code written for one platform can work on everything. And WebXR code will just work for everything with minimal extra development. So you pay your developer, or you develop yourself, one experience, and you can tailor that to VR, mixed reality, and AR at the same time. So it's a cost-saving measure. It's exciting because you can deploy this online after the event as well, or you can have people pick up their own phone, scan a QR code, and get into this at the same time. When somebody already has a headset on next to them, they're seeing the same experience. They're using the same thing. I think that's really quite exciting. And for me, as kind of like, I'm a very seasoned web developer. I've been doing web development for about 15 years. This is exciting for me, but it's also exciting from kind of like a creative and production point of view as well, where you can build one thing and then use it on different platforms for other things. So this is a small demo from the Vision Pro developer series online from Apple, which is just showing a web page with teapots, and you can tap your teapot in the headset, and it shows you what this looks like in 3D space at the same time. It's quite a basic demo, but it really does show off the technology that you can just build a web page and then all of a sudden you have 3D objects coming out of it. Apple have been very famously slow to adopt any new web APIs in Safari. WebXR has been one which I've wanted for a long time in Safari, and the fact that it's coming to the Vision Pro is very exciting. Unfortunately, as I just said, Apple are very slow to adopt these APIs, and even though I'm saying this is a lovely cross-platform piece, you can build one thing and it works everywhere, Apple still aren't putting it on iPhones just yet. So there is a polyfill from a company called Variant Launch, which is essentially a small app which gets downloaded as soon as you scan your QR code, and you can run that WebXR code on your iPhone as if you were in Safari already. So there are ways to do this. Variant Launch does cost money, of course, but it's a pretty small fee for the ability to run code anywhere, which is pretty great. And it wouldn't be a metaverse talk in 2023 without mentioning AI, of course. AI is really accelerating the way that content creation and kind of asset creation is being used for these kind of metaversal experiences. So the tools like Animate Anything can classify 3D models uploaded to this service and rig them for you. If you don't know what rigging is, it's basically you take a 3D object, you put some bones in there, and then you can move those bones around, and then it starts moving and doing a dance or whatever you want. But rigging can be quite challenging for non-seasoned 3D content creators. So this tool does it for you. It's pretty great. 3D scanning. You can use your phone or your iPad or whatever you like to scan things and create 3D models right now. This is not a new technology either. So technologies like NeRF, neural radiance fields, and Gaussian splatting have pushed past traditional photogrammetry and taken 3D captures to the next level. So there's an app called Luma AI, which can do these kind of scans. And you can take these scans, cut them out in Blender, an open source 3D platform, and then put these straight into your metaverse experiences right now. It's quite amazing. You don't even need a fancy iPhone. You can use your iPhone SE, your old one, doesn't matter. Just take a load of photos, it'll process them, create your 3D models. Pretty cool. And online platforms such as Runway ML can speed up workflows and get people on board with video editing faster than before. It does a lot of stuff, but things that are very cool to kind of like call out are generative videos from text prompts. So you can type in, say, I want green fields or a mountain, and it will generate a video based on your text prompt, just out of thin air. It's pretty great. And you can kind of stylize and reimagine videos, erase things, all in the browser. And AI is shortening development times as well. So tools like Meta's Code Llama are helping developers program faster. So instead of searching for hours on Google, you're down to the 10th page. What is this problem? Code Llama probably knows what your problem is, and it can tell you what's wrong with your code much quicker than a Google search could give you results for. And AI use in experiences as well. I'm not sure if this video will load. Oh yeah, it does. Amazing. This is a small demo by Active Theory, which is a WebXR demo. This is on the Quest 3. And you can talk to this demo. It's a seance, and it's all based on ChatGPT. So using the headset's microphone, it can recognize your voice, a bit like Interpretify is doing with mine. Good or bad, who knows? And it will recognize the words that you're saying, upload them to ChatGPT, and then it will process that, generate an output, and use voice synthesis to talk back to you. And then images in the portal as well are generated in real time as well using DALL-E image generation. And this is a really nice kind of bit of AI in the metaverse. But what does all of this mean for events? I'm going to pass back to Kerstin.
Thanks, Sam. So when we talk about these technologies as an experiential agency, we always really like to stay very grounded in the practicalities and what's possible within our world. We know the live event forum can be really unforgiving. We know that everything we take into it has to be really robust and really well tested. So we're quite keen to understand kind of what's possible today. We could talk about that for hours. I'm not going to, but I wanted to just touch on broadly kind of 3 areas of opportunity we see around these metaversal technologies and how they can be applied to the challenges we face today. So firstly, enhancing storytelling. Storytelling is one of the key objectives of any good event. And a lot has been made of the metaverse's application in VR to do kind of immersive first-person storytelling, and that is a really powerful application of it. But there's sort of new use cases emerging that I think are equally exciting. We were looking the other day at a new company called HoloLight. They're part of the industrial metaverse, and they allow automotive engineers to work with 3D virtual prototypes of complex systems and complex data, and they can do this remotely from really far away. So that's the image on the bottom right there. And this brings to mind a couple of common challenges that we have in the event space. So first of all, access to expertise. We all know that bringing the best storytellers in makes a huge difference to events, and they're not always available. If you can bring those in remotely in a way that's more interesting than a Zoom call in a noisy exhibition hall, you have a real chance to connect with people using those personalities. Secondly, as Sam kind of mentioned previously, AR and VR within events, it's quite an isolating experience. You would have to put this headset on, you would have to cut yourself off from the world. What you have now with the kind of maturation of these AR technologies and also these new headsets which have pass-through and better peripheral vision is you feel less isolated. You feel like you're still part of the event. And crucially, you can work together on something. So one of these models is something that small groups of people can all look at together, all wearing headsets. And that makes it much more communal, which is obviously what we're interested in within the events world. Another key application, I think, is around entertainment. So this was obviously where all the headlines were when the metaverse news story first came about, was around big concerts in virtual platforms. But we're seeing really mainstream channels adopt this technology now. So Eli Roth created a haunted house entirely VR film recently, which got huge critical acclaim. It's absolutely terrifying for anyone who isn't a fan of horror, don't watch it. But it's kind of showing, you know, a cinematic application of this technology is quite a new and interesting field. Similarly, the shot on the bottom right there is from I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here's Fortnite presence this year. It seems to be becoming the norm that any big platform, any big entertainment platform is experimenting with activating in metaversal spaces. And we think that branded experiences, especially sponsorships, sports sponsorships, are going to start including metaversal experiences as part of it because it has such a great possibility to increase your reach and to reach younger audiences especially. And thirdly, enriching remote. So there's been a massive backlash against virtual events since the pandemic, and that's largely because we're all sick to the back teeth of sitting on Zoom calls. But I do believe that the metaverse has an opportunity to get remote connection right, to make it better, to make it more intuitive, to make it more interesting. And we're seeing a lot of investment in those sorts of spaces from the big tech players. So one example of this is virtual avatars. They were previously just used for gaming. We're now going to have virtual avatars as the means of video calls on the Apple Vision Pro, as Sam mentioned. We've also got virtual avatars forming the basis of Roblox's new video call feature. So they've decided not to have videos of people, but to have these virtual avatars. And we're also seeing a kind of massive leap in how these avatars look. They use facial recognition. They respond to your expressions. The picture on the top right there of Mark Zuckerberg, that's actually not a film. That is a virtual avatar that they released as a proof of concept. The computing power that's needed to generate this currently is too high for it to be released onto the mass market, but we're only a few years away of virtual avatars looking like this, and you can imagine that's going to be much nicer to interact with. You know, already today we're seeing products released to market where you can make eye contact with people through your camera. That's such a small thing that makes such a big difference to remote connection. So I think essentially, you know, all the benefits that we had of those big virtual events where we had bigger reach, where they were more accessible to people who couldn't travel to live events for whatever reason, we should be encouraged to explore those. And I think the technology is going to start making those much more interesting. So, in conclusion, bit of a whistle-stop tour. We have lots more thoughts, we have lots more opinions if anyone wants to come and talk to us afterwards. But I would say, as a takeaway from this, you know, me and Sam, we're not here to be salespeople for the metaverse. We're not here to kind of predict the future of the internet. But I think what we feel is important around this is that when it comes to technology, it's really important to stay open-minded. It's really important to experiment, to try new things, and to foster a spirit of curiosity around it. At GPJ, we have a technology lab. It sits at the heart of our office, and we buy in kind of all the latest and greatest kit that we think might have an experiential application, and we invite people in to try it for themselves, because there really is no better way to understand how this application can work in practice. So we invite anyone who's interested in learning more about the technologies we've showcased and the experiences we've described to come and see us at our Southwark office, and you can try it out for yourself. Thank you very much for coming to our talk, and we still have 5 minutes left for questions if anyone had any.
Thank you.
Hello, there we go. So we do have quite a few questions. That was really interesting. So let's get on with some of these questions. Let's start with this one. There we go. So this is from Anonymous. It seems to be a lot of brand interaction with Fortnite. What kind of demographic are present on the Fortnite platform, and aren't they really young?
Well, that's an easy one. Yes, they're really young. Fortnite kind of it got to be really big because it was free, and that appeals to the kids. So yeah, it's a young audience, and any brands that are showing up there need to be cognizant of that. But it's a really big audience. Like, the numbers around Fortnite are staggering.
Didn't you mention BMW were launching on Fortnite though? So how does that work with that demographic, and obviously trying to attract people over 18? Or is Fortnite still in the late teenage years?
I mean, I guess that comes down to your brand strategy. I guess I would argue that just because something isn't open to consumers above the age of 18 doesn't mean that brands aren't targeting them with a view to the future and to wanting to appear innovative and forward-facing to, you know, their older audience.
Maybe it's just me that should be playing Fortnite then. Bear with me 1 second. So the next question is, has anyone used XR headsets to give live event attendees an enhanced experience, like the Vegas Sphere, for example, without the crazy expensive building?
Vegas Sphere on a headset, I like it.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely pitching for clients to use XR headsets for basically this kind of stuff at the moment, you know, like big AR overlays, which you couldn't, you know, do, you know, with expensive kind of like build costs. It's really great for sustainability as well. So we're really trying to push forwards with this stuff already. In terms of examples for this, I mean, I think events attendees, there probably are examples. I can't name any for sure off the top of my head right now, but you know, we're putting this in front of clients and they're being extremely receptive.
I've got one.
Oh, Kerstin's got one. Here we go.
One that we talk about a lot is there was a David Attenborough-sponsored Planet Earth experience at the Trocadero a couple of years ago, where you got given devices on the way in, and it was like a tropical kind of jungle space, and you held these big phones or big iPads over the plants and got kind of narration from David Attenborough, and it was one of the more seamless uses that we've seen of the technology. But I would say, to Sam's point, like, the horizons on AR and XR have just exploded, so I think we're going to be seeing really exciting applications of this. And actually, like, Tim Cook from Apple, who's fairly good at predicting these things, like, he's on the record as saying he thinks AR is the future. We certainly believe next year is going to be the year of AR, so I think definitely watch this space.
Absolutely. I mean, you take an experience like the David Attenborough one on an iPad, update it to work with the headsets, and all of a sudden you've got a new experience. You know, the latest headset releases genuinely are very exciting for that.
I have my own microphone again now. Is cost? This is a great question from Tim Manning. Is cost a barrier to entry to the metaverse? We would like to do a test and learn this approach, but we are reticent, great word, to burn too much client budget.
That is a great question. I would say, in a typical agency answer, it depends very much what you're trying to do. But no, I wouldn't be put off by the cost. First of all, there's a lot of existing platforms out there. You don't have to design something fresh. You can just go onto these platforms, and depending on what you want to do there, you take a platform like Spatial, for example, which is one of our favorites. Like, you can create something that looks like your client's brand fairly easily. It depends on your ambition level. There are obviously expensive ways to go into the metaverse as well, but I would say there's definitely low entryways, and we encourage our clients to do pilot projects. Like, people are nervous about this stuff, they don't know how they're going to respond. I always say, let's do a small targeted pilot project, throw it at the wall, see what sticks, and usually the results speak for themselves. Like, we've built little GPJ verses in an afternoon and showed them to clients, and they really loved them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, again, on the prototyping, piece, WebXR, you can use completely free tools to build things which actually work in the headsets, right now. Come up to me if you want to learn about these open source, ways of building these 3D experiences, because they are available already, and I've been using them for a good number of years already.
And I would say as well, to Sam's point, one of the things that AI is doing in this space is it's lowering the costs, because so much more of it can be sped up, it can be automated, development costs are coming down. So, now there's like creative ways around it, but I really think like it's going to become so much easier and so much quicker to do these things.
Definitely. And if you're talking about headset cost as well, the Quest 2, which works with most of these features, I think on launch was about £300, and the Quest 3 is £500. So it is more expensive, but it is a much more powerful device. So 500 quid is not too bad to get into this stuff, and you have the headset for a while as well. Plus, rental of these headsets is quite cheap too.
It's really achievable for the power of the functionality you get. And remember, you can rent them for events, right? You don't have to invest in all that tech and own it. Like, that's what we usually end up doing.
So a very similar question. I think we've answered this one. What's a really accessible way to introduce metaverse approaches to a client? Hire the equipment for one.
I think my advice would be to take it off the page. I think people hear about these things, and it's very easy to make something look impressive on a 2D slide, but it's a really different thing when you put a headset on somebody or sit them in front of a computer and show them what this is like to interact with. And I think we have had nothing but positive feedback from people once they see what these experiences can do. Like, you suddenly understand why it's exciting, you suddenly understand what the applications are. And we ran a lot of metaverse workshops last year and brought people in, and as soon as they tried it for themselves, they came to us with the ideas because they'd seen it. So they were like, I've just realized what problem this can solve for my business. So it's like, just carve out a couple of hours in their day with a box of kit would be my advice.
Absolutely. And if that isn't possible, again, I'll harp on about web technologies forever, but just building something quick on the web, with these free tools is really good to sell in on a slide. Again, for a client of ours, I put together a demo. Basically overnight, I took a bunch of their assets out of their asset libraries. They're all vectors, extruded them, to give them a bit of depth, placed them around my living room, and just created 2 scenes. And I was like, look, this is what your assets look in a space. Massive trees, small plants everywhere, and I just kind of, was using my hands on this as well, just recorded it out of the headset. Again, the headset is a bit of the barrier to entry, but, the Quest 3 is cheap, and it has all of these amazing features. So to kind of take your clients, existing assets, put them in a space, and then just kind of show that off to them to really show them what could, happen quickly is, I think, invaluable.
Okay, and the final question, this one's a bit more technical. So is there an oh no, I didn't mean to do that. We can do this one before we get to the technical one. Is there an application for drivers or pilots with XR technology? I'm guessing it would be amazing for helping lorry drivers see through their bling spots, which I think is a lot more exciting than a blind spot.
I want a bling
do you
spot.
Do you think you could apply the technology to that too?
Actually, interestingly, I took an example out of this, but we had an example from pilots in here. It's already being used in pilots training, AI and metaverse technologies to make simulators even more sophisticated than they are today. So that's one of the applications under this umbrella of the industrial metaverse that we're seeing. Definitely. I mean, as soon as you start talking about these things, you can see the applications in real life.
It's going to change the world. It's like drones. A quick question here. What about the metaverse without a headset? Does that exist?
Yes.
We do, yeah. So I did actually have an example on the slide, but I didn't talk about it, amazingly. Is Horizon Worlds. They've just actually added that platform to the browser. So they have a web version of Horizon Worlds, I think coming up soon. It's in beta, but it should be out soon. So that, the metaverse as the kind of, Meta's version of this is already coming to other platforms.
Yeah, I would say it definitely has the kind of biggest association is with headsets, but like Decentraland doesn't even exist on a VR headset. You can't get it on a VR headset, so we shouldn't be hampered too much by that as a definition. We should be looking at like what's the experience like, and yeah, what value does it deliver?
So we are out of time, but last question. This was the technical one. For Vision Pro, do you expect to be able to build a fully immersive experience with WebXR, or will WebXR for Safari only allow 3D objects in mixed environments? Wow.
Who asked this one?
Anonymous.
I know.
Mr. Anonymous, quite rightly so.
Testing my research. As far as I know, yes, you can do fully immersive stuff, but we don't know until it's out. As far from what I've seen on the simulator and from what I've seen kind of in the community and kind of like just from the noise around this, it is available, but we won't know until headsets are actually in hands.
Yeah, I mean the way they've marketed it is with this immersion dial, so you can dial up the environment to be either fully immersive or part immersive. But there's been a lot of excitement about this. Like, we're getting so many headset briefs this year just because of this announcement. Like, there's been huge additional investment in the VR AR space because of this announcement. So like Apple getting behind this as a concept is going to do really interesting things for the space.
Wow, that was a great session. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming, and thank you guys for presenting that session. That was really interesting. Has anyone got any further questions before we break? No? All good? Thank you very much for coming to the InEvent Theatre.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
If you would like to learn more about InEvent, please just pop next door. Thank you.